With the first doctor, I just had it up to my eyeballs. He was avoiding me. I had to do my
Yes.
own Google searches to figure this out. I see doctors on a regular basis, and I had never heard about joint pain being a sign of menopause. So that was revolutionary. I'm like, wow. So, all my friends, I tell them hair loss, joint pain, weight gain, because we all hear when you get in your 40s and 50s. I just thought it was motherhood, older age. Like, I didn't realize that my body was packing on extra pounds because I wasn't eating the right food.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Don't Shrink, the podcast that asks you to unapologetically, confidently walk through your world knowing that you know what's best for you. Today, joining us is CPA, mom, and all-around super health sleuth, Jennifer Burns. Jen has a very relatable story where she knew her doctors were not seeing her whole health picture. Unexplained joint pain, weight gain despite activity and diet, and her orthopedist and physical therapist were just obviously puzzled. It wasn't until Jen took the bull by the horns and visited an integrative medical health facility that real reasons came to light. 20 pounds, pain-free in her 50s, Jen is going to share what she learned and how we can step up and how you can step up for yourself too. Hi, Jen.
Hi, Daphne. Great to see you.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. A little background story. Jen and I actually worked together when she was living in DC for some time. And Jen was running, Jen was biking, Jen was always active. And the other thing you need to know about Jen as a CPA and former partner of a really big firm here in DC, Jen's a rule follower. Jen is all about facts and figures and numbers, and everything's got to add up. I always appreciated that about her. And something just was not adding up for you this time. Um, so you recently, pre-COVID, moved out to Nevada and
Yes.
started a new chapter and writing policy too, right? So talk about facts and figures. Um, Jen, tell me a little bit about what you noticed.
Well, over time, and great to be with you today. Thanks for having me on and letting me tell my story because it's been
Mm,
quite a journey.
We need it.
Yes. So what happened was I started to notice my hip was bothering me. And at first not a big deal, whatever. I slept wrong. I over exercised, whatever. So, at first you ignore it, but it quickly became a point where I couldn't ignore it. And my hip was bothering me. And I'm thinking it's a bone issue, like my joints, my
Oh,
bones. I go to
right.
see an orthopedist. That seemed logical to
Standard.
me.
Pretty
Yeah,
standard. Yeah.
exactly. So they do the typical thing, x-rays, MRIs, let me give you a shot of cortisone and we'll send you to physical therapy. And, immediately that one shot of cortisone on the side of my left leg, relieved a lot of the pain. And I started with the physical therapy and I was getting stronger, but I was still experiencing pain, when I would
Yes.
do certain movements or, I couldn't make it through a shopping trip at Costco without pain. And that was bothersome. I'm
That,
like,
that
what's
is an
wrong with
athletic
me?
event, by the way. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I was like, this is weird. Why am I having this pain? I'm trying to
Yeah.
get to the bottom of it. I'm doing the physical therapy. I'm doing the exercises. What could be going on here? And, after about 6 or 9 months going back to the orthopedist, and quite honestly, he was kind of giving me the runaround. Like he, would pass me off to his nurse practitioner. He really, because I guess I wasn't a surgical candidate, looking back on it,
There's
orthopedists
got to
are
cut. Yeah.
yeah,
Yes.
you can't give me
Yeah.
surgery to fix this issue.
Yeah.
So I'm being passed down to the nurse practitioner and they're trying different things. That last visit, they wanted me to go on crutches for 6 weeks. I'm
Mm.
like, why am
Okay.
I going to go on crutches? Like it's been 9 months. I've been doing physical therapy. Now you think I have a stress fracture? Like this is not making sense. And why would I have a stress fracture? I haven't been running because my hip has been bothering me. It's not
Yeah.
like I'm pounding pavement. I didn't fall. I haven't been in a car accident.
Yes.
Why are you now thinking I have a stress fracture? Like,
I
this was
think it's
not.
really important to point this out, like to our listeners, that Jen has been in good shape. Like Jen has always been active. Jen is, she's very mindful of her health, and none of this is adding up because it's like she said, this was not an injury, this was not acute. Why now? And why have they even got to the point where, as a rule follower, I know that you listen to that physical therapist. I know that you were diligent about your exercises and paying attention. So wow. Okay, so they're at the point where they're like, "Let's just avoid her.
Right.
We don't have any answers anymore." I think you even told me a story where you made an appointment with him across town, and he still managed to skate away from you. So clearly, these practitioners didn't have the answer as you, and probably the more that you pressed for an answer, they just sort of had given up. It sounds like, is that right?
That's what I felt like, and I was like, as a CPA and as a professional, I'm like, "Okay, they clearly don't have answers for me, like, they don't know. They don't know what to tell me.
Yeah.
Need to seek out some other advice," and started looking around, was also incidentally having had noticed that I was having thinning hair, and of course, I see
Oh,
those Nutrafol commercials,
yeah.
like,
Of course, we all. Yeah. It
maybe I
must
should
be
try some Nutrafol, like, not even putting any of this together.
right.
Um, and interestingly, Nutrafol offers this thing called a hair mineral analysis. And,
Okay. All right, we're gonna put this in the notes in case anybody else wants to jump in on this because this sounds really cool.
it
Yeah.
was fascinating. And of course, we're on the heels of COVID. I have nothing better to do. And they're like, send in the hair sample. Like,
Let's do it.
why not? I don't even
Yes.
know who I'm sending this to, but I'm going to put it
Yes.
in the mail and, see what comes back. And they take this really seriously. They set up an appointment with me. I got to
Wow.
talk with one of their naturopathic physicians, and he was going through details of what they could tell from my hair. And he's
Wow.
like, I really recommend that you go see a naturopathic doctor. And I'm like, funny you should mention that. I've been trying to find, a doctor to help me because I'm having this other issue with my hip, and he pointed out that there's an association for naturopathic doctors, and you can go on their website and you can find doctors in your area that are, certified as a naturopathic doctor.
Okay.
So, sure enough, that's what I did. I, you know, went on their website. I found a naturopathic physician in my area. I called up the practice, set up an appointment, and I was somewhat familiar with this, integrative medicine,
Yeah.
because I had seen it, in my lifetime working in the Southern California area, also in the DC area. This is
Yeah.
it's becoming more popular
Yeah.
because Western medicine doesn't have all the answers, you know?
Yeah, but like, and you spent enough time here on the East Coast. We take our Western medicine very seriously, and we often sort of poo-poo anything that doesn't directly, relate or line up with emergency care, as I like to call it. Where, hey, I've got a pill, I've got a surgery. That's where we put a lot of our focus, or at least the research, right? So you were aligned with a naturopathic doctor then that was affiliated with UCLA, or
Actually, it's not. It's called the Las Vegas Integrative Medical Center.
okay.
Um, I
We'll have to add that to the show notes
UCLA
here.
UCLA
Yeah.
has its own version,
Oh, do they? Oh, cool. Okay.
but here in Las Vegas, there's a practice called the Las Vegas Integrative Medical Clinic, and one of the doctors there, I got connected with, and it was fascinating. It was eye opening. The first thing she did was she um, looked at my background holistically, and she was pointing out, and what she's taught me, because I've now been under her care for almost 2 years. She said to me, Jennifer, everything's connected, you know. So the hip issue and the other issues they're experiencing, it's all interconnected. And,
Sure. It's,
you know,
yeah.
having had that experience with the orthopedist and not getting any answers, and um the first thing she said to me, because I'm in my 50s, I'm not going to hide that, she said, Jennifer, your body's going through a transition and we're going to help it.
Proudly.
And I was
Proudly
like,
going through a transition.
yes,
Yes.
that's what
Yes.
I need. And it was like music to my ears. And the first thing she did was, a thorough analysis with different labs. And what's fascinating about naturopathic physicians is they really dive deep into your lab results and figure out, what's happening uniquely to your body and what you need to be doing to,
Yeah.
to heal your body essentially. Yeah.
So you were surprised, I'm guessing, by the results that you got.
Yes. So I took a food sensitivity analysis test, which I had never heard of. And I've never had food allergies. I'm not allergic to any foods. But on this food sensitivity test, what it does is you know, it can tell if your body has somehow developed some sort of sensitivity to it. So nothing makes me
Inflammation,
sick,
yeah.
but
Yeah,
over time, I guess if you eat too much of the same things, your body doesn't really like that. That's why we have the old adage about, variety, eating variety is important.
absolutely. Yeah, and
Um,
luckily we can if we choose, right?
right.
So that's
So,
that's fascinating. Okay, okay. Do you mind diving into some of your personal things? I think and
sure.
most people could probably relate to like, oh yeah, you know what? I don't feel so good after I do X, Y, and Z. So can you tell me some of those things you found out?
Sure. So one of the things on the list that I have developed a sensitivity to is eggs. Now, I was probably eating eggs all the time because that's an easy source of protein. Yeah.
Yes.
Like I
Yep.
literally was probably eating eggs every day. So yeah, that was a no-no. The other thing I was eating, cashews. Like to me, that sounds like a healthy snack. Cashews. Yeah, that was on my list. Yogurt was another thing, which I've learned also in this process. Dairy in general is very inflammatory, but
You think
yogurt
about
for
think about
me,
how much that's marketed to older women, right?
well,
You
exactly.
have yep,
You
gotta
have
get
to
your
get your
calcium.
calcium.
Have to get your
Exactly.
calcium,
And I
right?
was like,
And
well,
now
this is great. It has calcium and protein. So I'm being extra good by eating yogurt, which honestly, I don't really like yogurt.
nope.
I literally thought I was being healthy.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
um,
You're eating off script because that's what you're advertised to, right? Yeah.
yes, yes.
Wow.
So as soon as I started cutting out those foods and, she had the first thing she had me do was start an anti-inflammatory diet
Yeah.
that just, it took time, but I started noticing differences, right away. And
Wow.
yes, it's been a huge improvement. And
And you
I
said
really
20 pounds. You said 20 pounds. It's not, I was like, that's a big, you and I both know that, like, some people losing 20 pounds is a little bit simpler, a little bit easier, but like, that's a big ordeal. So when you say anti-inflammatory diet, like, what was a typical diet for you?
so vegetables, fruits, meat.
Nice.
What I
So you
learned
were
is
eating meat, right? The evil meat we keep hearing about, right?
right.
Yes. Okay.
Well, so what I learned was, I need protein and I couldn't get the protein from eggs anymore. I couldn't get the protein from milk. I've now learned that that's inflammatory. So I actually have to eat meat more cuz
Wow.
meat and fish and yeah, I wasn't honestly, I would maybe prior to this eat meat maybe once a month.
Wow.
Now I'm eating meat or chicken or fish at least twice a day.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, what a flip. And otherwise, health-wise, what have you noticed other than the weight loss? What are you is the pain gone?
The pain is gone and,
You're
I'm
off the
certainly
crutches.
I'm off crutches, yeah. Can you imagine how my family
No.
wanted me all of a sudden I'm on crutches for 6 weeks? Yeah, it
You
was
think about this, right? Yeah.
yeah. So, especially with a 9-year-old running around, crutches was not fun, and
Good
that's
luck
why I was
to them.
like, "This doesn't make sense." So,
Yes.
um, yeah, so I'm not on crutches, I can make it through Disneyland even, Costco
Hey,
and
hey.
Disneyland
Hey,
without
hey.
being in pain and without having to take ibuprofen at the end of the day or, ice it up. And it's fascinating to me. I can eat if I eat something that's, maybe not the right thing to do, if I splurge too much on something, I do notice it. So,
Yeah.
like I splurged one day and I had a donut. Yes, I love bakery goods. That's been really hard to
There's no
get.
shame here. We don't shame people for
Yeah.
eating things they enjoy. Yeah.
But oh my goodness, not only did I have some hip pain, but I had this huge stomach ache. I'm like, "Oh my goodness, this is not
Yeah.
good." That donut was the wrong idea. Or, just having a bite, is okay. Or, I can eat a chocolate chip cookie every once in a while, and that's not gonna, you know, send me
I
over
think
the edge. It's
I
fine.
think that's what's hard for some people, right? Is and this is a bigger discussion. I'm sure we've had this at some point, but for some people, they're not even recognizing like the association of what they're eating with how they're feeling, right? They get really used to eating a certain way, or, socially they eat a certain way, and we're coming into the holidays. So I get to have this conversation with folks a lot. It doesn't feel good. Your body does not appreciate it, right? Um, but also important to recognize that things that we assume were healthy or were told was healthy may not be the right thing for our body, right?
Right.
And it's
Yeah.
just profound how that works. Now, you're exercising where you're having a good time now, right? Like what's an exercise day for Jen now?
So I have adopted yoga, because I was
Yay!
getting
Okay.
worried about my joints and, as an, older person now, I
Oh,
not
good.
doing
Okay.
running or the
You take one test and you're geriatric,
I
Jen. Come
know.
on.
Well, I love going to this yoga class because 'cause I'm the youngest person in there, but, I
Yes.
it's awesome, but what I've learned is that, and turns out I do have a little bit of arthritis going on, so not only am I menopausal, but, the little arthritis is setting in, and what's most important is moving those joints, so I don't have to do
Absolutely.
the hardcore cardio to get the right exercise for my body. I can be doing stretching is so key.
Yes,
Stretching
right?
and just movement, and so I've really adopted the yoga lifestyle.
Yoga's awesome. Yoga's great. I'm sure I thrust that upon you a few years ago when we were working together. Yoga's just really important, and I'm throwing a pitch here for it, even though, but it's so interesting how people just sort of deem it either ineffective, but I'm gonna tell you, the yoga that's going on now, the strength yoga, I mean, every major athlete is doing yoga. I mean, I don't know an athlete here, far, anywhere, whatever sport they're in, that's not doing yoga. It's such a beneficial thing, but it's like you said, it's also that synovial fluid. There's a $1,000,000 word for you.
Yeah.
Synovial fluid is that fluid in our joints, right? That keeps everything moving and lubricated. And it is that whole 40-year-old virgin thing where it's like, if you don't use it, you lose it, right? Like if you're not using it, if you're not making it, if you're not producing it, you do notice. So yoga is such an incredible way to work that into your everyday, into your exercise. And it's exactly like you said with the prescriptive diet. Prescriptive exercise is also important depending on where you are in life, what you want out of your activity level. So I don't know anybody over the age of 10, right? That shouldn't be doing yoga. It's one of those things where it should be standard. It should be just taught in school at this
I love
point.
that
So,
idea. I love that
yeah,
idea, not only for the exercise benefits, but just it's relaxing. It gives you some
stress
time.
management,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Yes,
Yeah.
self-awareness. Sometimes we get so deep into high intensity training and like what I like to call performance exercise, right? And it's basically people doing exercises around other people to impress other people. It's very primitive. And you have to stop sometimes and say to yourself, what was the physical benefit of that exercise, right?
Yeah.
And, I mean, if you're I don't know, shot putting cows during the day, like whatever activity, right? Maybe that makes sense. But if your exercise doesn't align with the lifestyle that you live, or your goal, you're really breaking down those fibers, especially if you're doing it daily and not with that express purpose, right?
Mhm.
So, all right, so we learned about your diet. Now, Jen, you actually grew up in Nevada, right?
I
Las
did.
La Las
Las
Vegas
Vegas,
as
I
well?
did,
I
yes.
feel like there's so many great stories there, like showgirl stories, very Taylor Swift right now. But what was diet like when you were a kid? I think that's really important because a lot of people just sort of go back to what they think is normal. We had a really great conversation with my husband's family about they didn't know what a vegetable was. It just wasn't part of their regular. So what was growing up? What did dinner look like, or what was
It was always meat and vegetables growing up, dinner some sort of yeah, and so, yes, I guess I didn't carry that into my adulthood because I had always heard that meat is not healthy, so I really and I it's harder to cook meat, so I just didn't cook meat.
Yep.
When I was single, I just really didn't cook it at home. I would eat it if I went out. So, now with the family and, I my
You
husband
have
does
your own 9-year-old,
barbecue.
right? So yeah. It was so
Yeah.
cute. It's so fun. I was like, "Is she eating meat? Is that something you can get her to eat and part of her diet?"
She is not interested in meat. I try to get
I
her
want
to
Yeah,
explore into different things. She is a very picky eater, but right now we are focused on, expanding her menu options and
you've
making sure
got a big
she's
job.
getting the
Yeah.
protein and the nutrients she needs, but that's hard. It's just hard when you have picky eaters for sure.
It is, but it's like we were saying, like, it starts at a very young age, and she's 9, you have plenty of time for this, right? But think about when we were kids, the things that they told us, like, "We need to eat fat-free. We can't have, red meat. We can't have these things." Who was advertising this? Think about how much, white flour was in our diet. Think about the bleached toilet paper we were using, but that's a whole nother story. But do you know what I'm saying? There's like these sort of echoes of what we perceive as healthy. One needs to evolve throughout our life, but two needs to start. We have this really big job as moms to start early and expose them in a way that, you know, does see the rainbow, does see the variety of things in their diet. So, do you have a mom trick for getting her to eat these things?
Well, I used to use the, sneaky chef trick of
Go on. Go
sneaky
on.
in food, more nutrient food and stuff that I knew she would eat. So, like, she likes quesadillas. So,
Okay.
guess what? I would sneak in, the blended squash to in order to get a
Nice. Good
vegetable in
call.
there.
Okay. Yep.
Same color as the cheese, and she doesn't, and it actually tastes pretty good. So I
Yes.
would do things like that where I would try to sneak in, some vegetables or protein into whatever she was eating. And I still try to do that. She catches on more quickly now, so I can't quite get away with it now that she's 9.
Yes.
But I like the idea of the whole rainbow, make sure you're eating a variety of colors.
So
You
much.
don't
So much.
she's such
Yeah.
a carb bloater, so I'm trying to get her to recognize the different colors on the plate and
That's
choose
awesome. Yeah,
different
that's big
choices.
work right there. And even in the sense that, we're teaching them to eat in a way that's healthy, not about being skinny. And the things that, the messages we got as kids, right? That skinny is healthy. And that's not the case. You and I have always been on the thinner side. That didn't mean we were healthy, right? I myself had a food journey like you, and I had to recognize that dairy was not my friend. And sometimes I had to still convince Rich, my husband, that dairy is not his friend, but we'll get that later. But it's one of those things, once you recognize what's best for your health or that you feel at your best doing these things, it doesn't even phase you that those things need to be in your life. So, do I eat a cookie? Absolutely. Cookies are delicious. I can skip on cake, but a cookie comes my way. I'm probably gonna try it. But it's knowing what that balance is and really listening to my body. It's not about punishment. It's not, I ate the cookie, now I need to go run 3 miles. That was a older version of Daphne that I'm glad to have left behind. But it really is recognizing how I feel in that moment, how I feel with that what I ate, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
That's one thing
Oof.
I've really noticed is in making such a drastic change in my diet is you do start to notice, and food can be healing. And if you're eating the right foods, you feel so much better. You wake up in the morning and you're not tired, you're not sluggish. You you're ready to start the day. You feel energized, and listening to your body is so important, whereas before I wasn't even that wasn't even registering. Like I just was going about my day and hadn't really recognized
Yeah.
how much
It's
what
like
I was eating was affecting
it's like
me.
we don't realize till we're in pain or we can't walk through the Costco that,
Yeah.
something's up.
Well, no, but I had never heard of this concept that food can cause inflammation in your body. Like, and I understand now that that's a well-known concept, and that was just new to me as an
Especially
accountant.
highly
Mhm.
processed foods, right? We
Yeah.
don't even think about it because highly processed foods were so common to our parents, right? That was something that they did was they took really, really refined things because they were worried about feeding the masses. They weren't thinking about the nutrition and the effects on the body thereafter. So that's really interesting. Do you remember that moment that you were in the doctor's office though, when you like just like the switch kind of flipped for you when you're like, yes, right? Do you remember this moment?
Oh,
Like,
yes. Yes,
okay,
I do remember
tell
this
me more.
moment. Yes. Well, I just, with the first doctor, I just had it up to my eyeballs. I mean, he clearly was, not he was avoiding me,
Mm.
and he was sending in his nurse practitioner who also was a woman, and thinking back on it, I'm like, "Wow, there was a woman in this practice, and she didn't think to tell me that joint pain is a symptom of menopause." Like, I had to do my
Yes,
own Google searches to figure this out, you know?
the
And my
time that
doctor
Google works,
just
yeah.
never said that to me. I mean, I see doctors on a regular basis, and I had never heard about joint pain being a sign of menopause. And, so that was revolutionary. I'm like, wow. So, all my friends, I tell them, hair loss, joint pain, these are weight gain because we all hear, when you get in your 40s and 50s. I just thought it was, you know, motherhood, older age. Like, I didn't realize that, my body was packing on extra pounds because I wasn't eating the right food.
Right,
That was just
right.
fascinating, right?
And you don't have to, like, the best part is, like, you are a classic important story that everyone needs to hear because you don't have to accept that. You don't have to just start buying bigger sizes, right? And I never wanna shame anybody who's going through a weight loss journey or anything like that, but you have to know that you have other options, and I think, 1, thank you for telling your story because I think we all have bought into the narrative that gaining weight in menopause, pain in menopause, slowing down. I mean, there's tons of pills for men, but for women, we're just supposed to like just roll with it, right? This is
Right.
this is the next chapter for us. And I appreciate that you're here telling the opposite narrative and encouraging other people. Do you have advice for anybody who's in that?
Definitely. Well, just seek out a naturopathic physician who will spend the time with you and
No,
look at your unique lab results and, figure out and tell you what you could be doing differently. And, there's a lot of trial and error. You have to be willing to commit the time. I mentioned earlier, it's been, almost 2 years that I've been on this journey with her. And I'm in love with my doctor. She's
it
amazing.
is
I think
possible. Yes.
she's given
She's
me
lovely. Or is she very
excellent
much?
advice. And,
Yes.
don't give up. Yeah. The other thing, I know one of the things going through menopause people consider is taking estrogen. Think about whether that's okay for you. For me, I didn't want to be on medicine that I would have to take every day. I was trying to
Thank you
find
for
other
saying that.
solutions.
Yeah.
And, I've been able to find one. I can, through eating the right foods, I'm not in pain anymore. And, I learned that as you lose estrogen, because that really is like the lubricant and the glue that helps your body, move the
Absolutely.
way it does so many things. Like, once you start losing it, you have to adjust,
Yeah.
your practices to help your body maintain a healthy, lifestyle. Yeah.
Everybody else is taking their Ozempic, they're taking their testosterone, they're taking all their. It is no different. It is no different than you doing the same type of blood work and diagnostics, and this is not something you have to settle. You don't have to settle and take it at face value. There are options out there, and I love that you shared that with us, and you look amazing, as you always do.
Thank
But
you. You're so
how
sweet.
how great that we have this option. So I'm gonna link Jen's information for everybody, about the resources and the support and things she had. Jen also mentioned to me that there's an entire network through the country. So if you don't live in Las Vegas, if you don't live in Washington, DC, there are a network of doctors who do this type of work, and you deserve it. You deserve to be able to understand what's going on with your body and not accept the status quo.
Exactly.
Jen Jen, have you always been a bull by the horns kinda girl?
Well, I'm not sure I would say that. I mean, I like to stand up for myself. I don't know, people describe me as quiet, but I'm certainly not a wallflower. And,
Not that I've known. Yeah,
in my professional life, I, have to speak up when I think things aren't going the right way. I look at the facts and I evaluate the facts. That's what I have to do for a living. And so, in this situation, when I'm looking at medical information about myself, I'm like, this just isn't adding up. I need to investigate this further and get some other help from some
yeah.
other experts who can advise me on how to get better because I don't want to take medicine every day. I don't I want to be able to exercise. I want to be able to go to Disneyland without being in pain, and without having to take ibuprofen every day. Like, what can I be doing differently to improve my situation?
Thanks for giving us hope, Jen.
Yeah,
Thanks. I think this is what the story is. It's really about hope that this is not the end. This is not something you have to accept, though. But Jen, thank you for joining us. This
thank
was
you.
really important. It's a really important conversation for women, for men who love women and want to take care of their wives and their sisters and their mothers and their spouses. Like, there are options out there and there is support. We don't have to accept the status quo of what's in front of us or even traditional emergency medicine. There are other options out there. So again, check out the link in this show, and if there's something that speaks to you in this show, share it with somebody who needs to hear this today. Jen, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to share my story. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, we'll talk to you soon.